Hey everyone, it's Marissa and we are back for a Tunisian crochet tutorial. Today we're going to be making a mesh sweater using the Tunisian mesh stitch. So this is what we're going to be making. I will take you through all the materials you'll need. I'll show you the stitches that you'll need to create this and how to sew it all up together. So I'm really excited to show you and we can get started. So let me know if you make it. Let me know if you have any questions throughout the tutorial. It's my first tutorial, so I've tried my best and hopefully you guys like it. Let's get started. So now we're gonna start with the supplies, and first is this Yarbo cookie cakes. It's a worsted weight yarn. I'll drop the amounts below since I haven't finished this project yet, just so you can estimate how much yarn you'd need. And with the worsted weight yarn, you're going to want a 6.5 millimeter Tunisian crochet hook. And I also have a cable attached, just because this project's definitely going to be longer than my traditional Tunisian crochet hook. You also need some scissors and a measuring tape. Mine's a little tangled. Not completely necessary, but it's always helpful to measure your body. And I'll show you how to do that next. I wanted to quickly show you a diagram I put together so you can visualize what you'll be crocheting today. So feel free to pause here or take a screenshot. These are the measurements that I will be referring to throughout the video. I wanted to also share my measurements that I used for this project. I typically wear a size medium and wear a size 34B bra. So based on my size, these are the measurements I took. If you're smaller, your measurements can be smaller. And if you're larger, your measurements will be larger. And if you're also a medium, feel free to use the same measurements as me. And lastly, I wanted to share the number of chains that I used to get my measurements. So my starting chain for the body panel was 65 chains, and remember that this must be an odd number so that the Tunisian mesh stitch will work. And for my arm or like shoulder length, I started with a chain of 51, and this will also need to be an odd number. So feel free to use this as a reference point as well. In this diagram, I also share the total number of rows I crocheted for each panel. So hopefully this will give you some idea of the length that you should be creating for your body panel and for your arm panel. Now that I've shown you all the measurements you'll need to take, I want to quickly show you how you should take these measurements on your body so that you actually take the correct measurements. So I've got my handy dandy measuring tape, a necessity for any crocheters. So the first measurement you need to take is your bust measurement, and you're gonna want to take that completely around the fullest part of your bust. And so you're gonna take the measurement here at the fullest part, if you can see that. I don't have much, but we're working with it. So when you take that measurement, you're gonna wanna divide that by 2 to get your measurement A. So mine is 46 centimeters, my measurement A. And next, for measurement B, this is going to be your torso length, so how long you want your panel to be or your sweater to be. So what I do is I take my measuring tape and put it at the highest point of my shoulder, hold it there, and check how long I want my sweater to be. So if you want a full length sweater, you're gonna wanna measure past your belly button towards your waist area. But if you want a more crop look, maybe like at this little waist here, you'll take your measurement here, and this will determine the amount of rows you will need to create on your sweater. If you want to shrug, you can even take it all the way up here. So it really is however long you want it to be. And I chose the measurement 51 centimeters. It's kind of like right at my belly button, so kind of cropped, kind of not. That's just how long I wanted it to be. And then measurement C is your armhole. So what I like to do is hold the measuring tape at my shoulder, grab it, wrap it around, and measure it at my armpit. And so I like to take the tight measurement, move it around, because you don't want your armhole to be too small. And I even added a few centimeters just so like I'm not super tight in this area. I don't want to get really sweaty if it's super skin tight. So I gave it a little more length, and that's going to be your measurement C. And then for D, that's your arm length. I like to just take my measuring tape like this, and like it's hard with one person, but I just kind of hold it with my wrist bent, and that's how I take my arm length. And you can always hold your panel up to your arm to see how it's working up. And if you try it on and it's too short, then you need to add a few more rows. If it's too long, maybe you'll need to frog a few rows. And then measurement E is for your neck hole, but you want to make sure that your head can fit through the neck hole. So for measurement E, I like to measure around my head at like the biggest point, just because too many times I have seamed the shoulders together and then my head does not fit through, so I had to go back and frog a few of the slip stitches together. So for the neck hole, I recommend taking your head measurement just to make sure that your head will fit through the neck hole. So I hope that helps. And you also don't have to take your body measurements. You can always hold your crochet piece up to your body to see how it's working up. It's definitely not necessary. I just like to have this so I don't have to keep, I like to take my measurements so I don't have to keep putting it up to my body or trying it on my arm or like fitting it over my head. So that's why I like to take my measurements, but not completely necessary. So this is what we're going to be making today. This is my first body panel. You can see that beautiful color change and that mesh stitch. And I just love how it turns out for a really airy, cute sweater that we can wear over like a bralette. So I think it's gonna turn out really nice. Let's get started on the first, or I guess my second body panel. For this tutorial, we are gonna be primarily using the Tunisian mesh stitch. And for this first part, we're gonna start with the body panel. And you're gonna wanna chain the length of your measurement A, which is the measurement of your bust divided by 2. So it's long enough to cover across your body. And to get started, you're gonna make a slip knot. Pull that tight. And you're gonna wanna chain the length of your measurement A. And please keep in mind that this needs to be an odd number or else you won't get the proper mesh stitch. And I know from my first panel that I need to chain 65, but you can measure this as you go. Measure it against your measuring tape. So I'm going to chain 65 and I will come back. now we're back. I just finished my foundation chain for the body panel, and I have 65 chains here. And I want to show that it measures 18 inches, which is equal to my measurement A. That's your bust measurement divided by 2. So that you'll make sure this will cover your whole body. And if you want it to have a looser fit, you could always chain more chains. And just a reminder, your chain needs to be an odd number for the mesh stitch to work properly. To get started, we are going to actually turn our chain to the back so we can work into these back bumps of our chain. This will help create a flatter look at the bottom of our body panel. So this is the front. We're just gonna turn to the back to go into these bumps right here. And the first row of this Tunisian mesh stitch is actually just going to be a Tunisian simple stitch. So that's what we're gonna do for the first row. So you'll turn it to the back, work into this back bump right here. It's a little tight. Pull up a loop. Next one, you see that bump right there. Work into that. Pull up a loop. And so we will continue with that into the back bump. Yarn over and pull up a loop. So you'll see we're starting to get our first loops on our hook to start that Tunisian simple stitch. Still working into those back bumps. Knowing that I started with a chain of 65, I know at the end, after I completely pull up all the loops in the back bumps, I know that I should have 65 loops on my hook at the end. So we'll continue to work that, and then we will check our work and make sure that we have the same number of loops on our Tunisian crochet hook as the same amount of chains that we started with. So this is what my hook looks like with all 65 stitches. And I did count this, count all the loops and make sure you have the same amount of loops on your hook that you started your chain with. So I had 65 and there's 65 loops on here. Now we are gonna start our return pass, and this is still gonna be the same as Tunisian simple stitch. So always start by yarning over, pulling through one loop, that's your chain 1, and then you'll go down and yarn over, pull through 2 loops all the way down for your return pass. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. You will just continue this all the way down. I personally love the repetitiveness of Tunisian crochet, at least for the stitch, just because you really don't have to think, and it's almost like I get into a meditative state as I'm Tunisian crocheting. So I'm getting to the last few loops on my crochet hooks. We're just gonna finish off this return pass. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And the last one, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And that is our first row Tunisian simple stitch, and now we'll move on to the mesh stitch. So now we are getting into row 2 of our pattern, and now we are going to start our mesh stitch. So normally in Tunisian crochet for the simple stitch, you would enter through this front bar, but we're not going to do that. We're actually going to skip that first bar and move into the second one. So what you'll want to do is yarn over and go into that 1, 2, that second front bar there. Then yarn over, pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your crochet hook. And we're going to do that again. Yarn over, skip that first one, go into the second front bar. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Now we have 5 on our hook. We'll continue that pattern all the way down, yarning over, skip that, go into the next bar, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, skip. And so when you get to the end of this row, you should still have the same amount of chains or loops on your hook that you started with. So I should have 65 loops on here. What happens when we yarn over is it creates that loop for that one we're skipping, and then we pull up the loop here. So we'll continue to do that. Check your work, make sure you have the same amount that you started with, and then I will show you the return pass. Now I am at the last few stitches of my forward pass, first row of my mesh stitch. So I just wanted to show you how I finished this forward pass. So I just went over this bar, or went into this bar. So I'm gonna yarn over, skip this one, and go into this bar, pull up a loop. And now we are on our last 2. So this is the one I'm gonna skip after I yarn over. I'm going to skip this front bar right here. This is the one I'm skipping. And now I need to work into the last stitch. So what I did was turned my work just to this edge, and you can kind of see this little V here, right here. And we're gonna wanna work into this little V so that we can have a straight edge. So I'll show you that. Yarn over and then turn and work into this V right here on the edge. And then we'll work it like usual, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now I'm going to check my work, make sure I have 65. The counts can get a little screwy on that first row. So I'm gonna quickly count this. Okay, I confirmed I do have 65 loops on my hook, and which I'm really happy, don't have to frog anything. And I'll show you our return pass. It is the same as a simple stitch return pass. So you're gonna wanna chain one, so yarn over, pull through that first loop on your hook. That will help keep your edges straight. And then we are gonna yarn over, pull through two. Yarn over, pull through two. Yarn over, pull through two. And we're just gonna continue that down the row until we get to the end. And then this is where the stitches start to look a little bit different. So I will show you how to continue this mesh stitch pattern for the rest of your rows. I like to squish my yarn a little bit closer, just so I can keep my tension right. But we're just yarning over, pulling through, oopsies. Oh yeah, so be careful. If you lose one, that's okay. Just make sure you get the right loops back on there. Yarn over, pull through two. Over, pull through two, continue. So I just finished my return pass of row 2, and this was our first row of mesh stitches. And now it looks a little funky, definitely doesn't look like a regular Tunisian simple stitch row, but as you can see, this is where we start to get that airy mesh look. And so we're going to continue that same pattern of yarning over, skipping one bar and going into the next bar. And I just want to show you what the bars look like, just because they can be a little hard to see, but you just need to know what you're looking for. So this is our first bar that we're gonna skip right here, and right next to it is the bar we're gonna go under. And you can kind of start to see that down the chain. It might be hard to see because of the color, but you can see these two bars here. So we'll skip that first one, go into the second one. And same over here, these two bars, skip that first one, go into the second. So we'll just continue that mesh pattern we learned in the previous row. So yarn over, skip that one, go into the second, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, skip that first bar, go into the second bar. Yarn over and pull up a loop, and now you have 5 loops. Yarn over, skip that first one, go into the second, and last one I'll show, yarn over, skip that, go into the second bar. So you'll continue that down the row, and at the end make sure you have the same amount of loops as the chains you started with. So for me that will be 65. So now I am almost done with my forward pass, and I want to show you how I end the row to keep it straight. So I just yarned over, went underneath the second bar, and now we are at the end. And so I'm going to turn my work and work my, or like yarn over and work my last stitch into this little V here. Let me grab a little needle so you can see it clearly. The multicolored yarn makes it a little hard to see, but this little V right here is where I'm gonna work my last mesh stitch so I can keep that edge straight. So I'm going to yarn over, turn my work to the edge and make sure it goes under those 2 last loops on the edge. You can see that here. Then I will pull up my last loop, and there we go. And just make sure, if you want, you can count, or if you trust yourself now. I never trust myself, so I will count. But to start your return pass, you are gonna want to yarn over, pull through 1 loop. And one tip here is sometimes I pull my working yarn too tight, and then it kind of closes this loop here. So I'm gonna try to keep my tension a little bit loose, just because when I pull it tight, it starts to scrunch this long edge that I start working up, and I want it to be straight. So I'm gonna be sure to keep in mind not to tighten this loop anymore, and as I'm working into my next return pass. So yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. The return pass is always the same. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And you will continue this mesh pattern for as many rows as you'd like. If you want it cropped, you can keep it a little bit shorter, which means less rows. And if you want more full coverage, like down to your waist, you will want to add more rows. So the rows, as you make it longer, that's going to be your body coverage, so your measurement B. So you will want to work as many rows until you hit your measurement B, and then I will come back to show you how we bind off our Tunisian mesh stitch. So I will meet you back when my rows are long enough to cover my body and it matches my first panel. This is my second panel that I am working on right now. So for reference, this is what my 3rd completed row looks like. So you will just continue the mesh pattern, working into those, skipping like that first loop, going into the second one there. And just so you are aware, I did a little bit of there we go. Just so you're aware, my first panel, I did about 40 rows before binding off. So we are back, and I just finished 33 rows of the mesh stitch, and I want to show you how I finished the last rows. So I want it to end the same way we started, with 1 row of Tunisian simple stitch right here. And so I just want to quickly show you how I do that. With the mesh stitch, we skipped this first bar and worked into the second bar down the row. But this time we are just gonna Tunisian simple stitch. So just go under this first bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, go under the second bar, yarn over and pull up a loop, all the way down. So these are the next set of 2. Under this bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, the next bar, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we'll just continue this down the row, working into all of the bars and pulling up a loop. You will know you are finished once you have the same amount of loops on your hook as the same amount of chains that you started with. So mine is going to be 65. And the return pass is going to be exactly the same as the others. And I will show you that one last time. I'll meet you back when I finish the forward pass. So now we are at that last stitch. And so I'm gonna work into that first bar, which is right here. That first bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then work my last stitch into that little V right there. Right there. So yarn over and pull up a loop. And now I have 65 loops on my chain, or on my crochet hook. And the return pass is gonna look the same as all of the others. Yarn over, pull through that first loop, and then yarn over, pull through 2 loops all the way down. And we'll continue that down the row, and I will show you what we'll do to fasten off. So I just finished that row of Tunisian simple stitch, and now we are going to fasten off. So the way that you do that is you have this one loop on your hook, go under that first bar, and slip stitch. So yarn over, pull it through that, and pull it through this loop as well. And you'll do that down the row, under the bar, yarn over and pull it through the bar and also through that loop on your hook. I'll show you a few more times. Under the bar, yarn over, slip stitch. Do a few more for you. And you'll see it starts to give you that straight edge right there. So we'll just continue to do that down the row. And at the very end, you can yarn over and fasten off. But it starts to give a really nice finish to your work, making it really easy to join all of the panels together at the end. And you can also see it kind of gives that similar look to the beginning of our work. When you close off that simple stitch, it starts to look like this very first row. And then once you finish that, you will have your first panel. So I'm just getting to the end of my row of slip stitches. So we're gonna finish that, and I will show you how to do the very last stitch. And so we've got 2 more. We've got this one right here, and then the edge piece just to finish it off. So that very last slip stitch is gonna go into this V right here. Right here. And pull that through. And then you can just cut it off. Pull your yarn through. And then you are finished with your first panel. So you are gonna want 2 of these panels, 2 matching panels. This is what it's gonna look like. That starting chain, and the lengthwise of your panel is going to be half of your bust size, and then the height is going to be how like cropped or how long you want it to be. So after you've created your 2 body panels, you're also going to want to make 2 sleeves. So this is my finished sleeve panel, and it's the exact same pattern. So if you need help starting it again, I would go back to the body panel, but just make sure you're using the right measurements. So this starting chain for my sleeve panel, this is going to be the width of my shoulders. This is going to be your measurement C, and you want to make sure this wraps around your arm completely. And I like to leave a little space because I don't like it tight in the armpit. And then the length of your panel is going to be the length of your arm. So you can like lay your arm down and measure it. Obviously this isn't my full arm, but when I hold it against my arm, it's just as long as I want it to be. So you can imagine when you fold this in half, this will be your arm sleeve, and this is how you'll wrap it around. I dropped a darning needle, so your arm will go in there, if that makes sense. But it's worked exactly the same way as the body panel, just the measurements are different. So the starting chain is going to be your shoulder length, measurement C, and then the length, the amount of rows, is going to be as long as your arms. So now that we finished all 4 panels, this is what it looks like before we attach them together. So this one is my front panel, back panel, sleeve, and sleeve, and then there's noodles, of course, interrupting. What you're gonna wanna do next is have them wrong side facing up. And then we're gonna use stitch markers, or if you feel comfortable not using them, we're gonna put stitch markers here to mark our neck hole, and then seam this side and this side. So that will be the first step, and then you'll move on to seaming on the sleeves right there and right there. I'm crazy, so I love to find the perfect stitch and get it aligned perfectly with the seam, but I'll give you some instructions as we go. But right now I'm going to start with the shoulder seaming. That's the first step, and make sure to try on your piece so your head fits through the hole. There are times where I had to go back and take out some stitches because it did not fit over my head. So let's get started on seaming. I'll show you how I like to do it, but there's many ways to do it. I like to slip stitch together, but you can also use like a mattress stitch. You could sew it up however you like. I wanted to quickly pop up this diagram again to help you get the measurements for your shoulder seams. So on this diagram, number 1 and 2, and the way that I got this measurement is by taking my measurement A and subtracting measurement E, which is my flat neck hole, and then dividing that by 2. And you do that because you have 2 shoulders. And you can see my example math below. My measurement A was 46 centimeters. I subtracted my neck hole of 28 centimeters, got 18 centimeters. Dividing this by 2, you get 9 centimeters. So for each shoulder, I should seam 9 centimeters long. And I think that turned out to be about 13 slip stitches. So it's not much. You just want to make sure that you don't seam your shoulders too long, otherwise it won't fit over your head. So to get started connecting your panels, what I did was create a little slip knot, and then I will take my 2 panels with the stitch marker and connect those two. So what I do is find the first stitch on my front panel, go through the first stitch, and same here on my second panel. And then I will add my slip knot on there. So to connect it, I pull the slip knot through all of the loops. It can get a little tight, oopsies. Okay, let's start that over. Okay, it can get a little tight, so take your time to get it through all the loops. And then I yarn over and pull it tight to attach my yarn. And to seam it together, I go through all loops and do a slip stitch join. So I pulled it, I yarned over, pulled it all through the loops, and then also pull it through this loop. I'll show that again. So go through stitch number 2 on your front panel, stitch number 2 on your back panel, yarn over, pull up a loop, and continue pulling that loop through the next one. So we've got 2, and I need to do 13. So I'll show that again. Through both panels to join them, yarn over, pull over, and slip stitch. And this could also be one fluid motion. I'm going slow to show you, but this can definitely be much quicker. And this is the method I like to use. It's the easiest for me. And I don't really like sewing. So if you prefer to sew, I am new to mattress stitch. That could also be really nice. It's a nice and seamless way to attach your panels if you do enjoy sewing. But this is my preferred method. So I'll just keep going till I get to my stitch marker. And we will do this for both sides of our shoulders. And then I will show you how I joined the stitch markers for attaching the sleeves. Almost done. You never realize like how long crocheting takes you until you film it. But it is just such a beautiful process. Every stitch comes with care. Once you hit your stitch marker, I crochet into that one as well. And then you'll have to fasten off. Almost there. All right, and then I'm going to take out my stitch marker and put one more stitch in. That will be it for my shoulder. And again, just, oh, I need my scissors, but so I just cut that there. And I will pull my yarn through, fasten off, and then you can weave in your ends into the top seam. That's where I like to do it. And you'll do the same for the other side. Okay, now that we have seamed our shoulders, we are ready to attach the sleeves, and I want to quickly show you how I did that. So I'll come over here and see that I've measured out my arm length, which should be 36 centimeters. And then I found the middle stitch or middlemost stitch to connect here where the shoulder seam is. So removing that, I lined these up, and these stitches aren't gonna, the stitch count isn't gonna match perfectly, and that's okay. So I have about 50 stitches, so I marked at the 25 and then know that like the 26th stitch will be here, or I guess the opposite, since I'll be crocheting that way. And then this is about 16 stitches on like the front and back panel side. So I will just slip stitch crochet across and attach these two panels here all the way down so that my sleeve will be attached, and then I will do the same thing on the other side. You'll use that same slip stitch join that I just showed, so if you need to go back to that, you can do that, and we will just join it across. Now that we have the sleeves all seamed up, all we have to do is fold it in half. Back with the diagram one last time. So now that we've seamed our shoulders and our sleeves together, all you have to do is fold your sweater in half and start your seams up the sides and along the sleeves. So I showed where I started my join and where I ended, just so you can visualize it. After that, all you have to do is weave in your ends and you are done. So now we fold it in half, and all we have to do is to stitch up the side and continue along down the sleeve, and we'll do the same on the other side, and then you'll be done. All you have to do is weave in your ends, and if you'd like to block it, you can block it, but let's go ahead and get the sides seamed up. So this is the finished piece. I've finished weaving in all of my ends, and I think it looks so lovely. I'm wearing a black undershirt, but it could be perfect to throw on over a bikini before you go to the beach. I just love the mesh look. It's so cute, it's so cozy. And the Yarbo cookie cakes feels really, really nice. It's not too warm or like too plasticky feeling, even though I believe it is an acrylic yarn. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I would love to see what you come up with, what you make, what color scheme you use. So make sure to tag me if you make this sweater too. Thanks.